Hey everyone, welcome to episode 4. It is week 1 of the NFL season. On today's episode, we are going to break down all 3 teams, the Eagles, the Jets, and the Giants. Welcome back. We're going to get right into it, starting with the sports team that Brad Sistad hates the most, cheered on by the fan base he despises the most. The New York Football Giants, a nickname, go figure, he can't stand. Sistad, take it off. Let's break down the Giants.
Yes, make sure you throw that football in there for all the people who were around in the 1950s when the baseball Giants moved to San Francisco.
Yeah. Or the G-men. What's worse?
Or the G-men or Big Blue. They're all really, really bad.
Forgot about Big Blue.
Yeah, so the most insufferable fan base in all of sports, they are back. They are excited for 2024. As far as the team itself, I don't know. I'm always like irrationally not afraid of the Giants, but I'm always kind of just worried that they're going to do well, because in my world, sports-wise, there's absolutely nothing worse than when the Giants are good. Their fans are they're insufferable. They're very stupid, and they're just god awful. I'm really hoping that they have another bad year. I don't see any reason as to why they would have a good year, although I'm not as down on them as most people are, and I can kind of tell you why, and we'll see what you think about it.
Tell us.
So I think that they made some pretty decent moves this offseason. I think that the move they made for Brian Burns is really good. Here's why. I think they're going to be at least formidable. I think their defensive line is going to be really good. As much as it pains me to admit, I think Burns and Thibodeau on the outside is going to be a pretty good tandem for them. And their defense has actually been okay over the past couple of years. I know they've got like decent secondary, nothing that's going to blow you away. They're not like Baltimore or Pittsburgh, but I think that they have a decent enough pass rush with a solid back seven that will at least keep them in games. Now, the problem with them is that their offense is just so bad. I can't believe that they continue to like double down and try to acquire weapons for Daniel Jones. It's really mind-boggling for me. But I mean, yeah, I think if they got this kid Neighbors, who everyone seems to be really high on.
A lot of hype.
Yeah, a lot of hype on him for good reason. I mean, that there seems to be, not that this has like a ton of correlation, LSU has been a star wide receiver factory over the past like 15 years or so. So yeah, this kid dominated college. He dominated the SEC, which is, the hardest conference in all of college football. And everything that you read about him is that he really jumps off the screen. He's really, really good. So that, with the fact that they drafted a wide receiver first round last year, Jalen Hyatt, kind of had a little bit of an up and down season last year. But again, he's playing with like the worst quarterback play that you can imagine. And, I know you guys are going to think I'm a hater, but like the fact that Daniel Jones is back and healthy, I think is like worst case scenario for them.
How is it worst case scenario?
Because I think he's horrible. I think he's like.
Then why are you so worried about them being good? You said that you're not as down on them as everyone else, and then you just listed everything that's terrible about them.
Yeah, but everybody thinks that they're going to be like this 3-14 team, and I just don't think that. I think that they'll definitely win between 6 and 8 games.
Yeah,
they did it last year, which is fine, right? That might get you third place in the division. Like they're no longer in my opinion, they're no longer thank God we're playing the Giants this week. Like we could really use a win.
I disagree with that.
There's somebody that you have to. Okay, that's fair. I just think that, I think that they're going to be a little bit better than people think. I don't think that they're going to be like a threat for the division or the playoffs, but if Daniel Jones gets hurt and Tyrod Taylor has to play the entire year, then maybe they will make the playoffs, because
Tyrod Taylor's the backup quarterback for the New York Jets.
Oh, that's right. Whoever their backup quarterback is, you know what I mean. Tyrod Taylor played much better than Daniel Jones last year.
They have Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito.
DeVito, man,
string. He's not going to be on the active roster, right?
Yeah, so
he probably will. He's going
to be third string.
Right. He'll be on.
Quarterback that's on the inactive roster that's allowed to be brought in or in an emergency. That's like the extra spot that they created a couple years ago.
Drew Lock is injured right now, apparently. So I would assume DeVito slides up to number 2, at least.
Either way, Daniel Jones is better than them.
He's not good. That's not saying much. He's not saying much. But yeah, he is.
Yeah, so there's a couple
5 games, honestly.
So
5-6 games. That's kind of where I'm at.
So is he better than them, or is he just like physically more gifted than them? Because every time
Isn't that the same?
Jones, he's not really, because I think he makes really bad decisions. He is a turnover machine, which he wasn't last year. You know, you got to give him a little bit of credit there. He cleaned up the turnovers a little bit, but he didn't play much that last year. But the year before, he cleaned up the turnovers a little bit. But he's pretty much good for a turnover a game over his career.
So here's a question for you, Brad. Do you, because I know you're kind of on the fence here of, you know, are they going to take a step forward? Are they going to be really bad? It seems like you're kind of in the middle. Question for you is, do you think the Giants and Daniel Jones can get back to their ceiling? Do you think the ceiling potentially, Stu, is them where they were 2 seasons ago when they went on the road and beat the Vikings in the wild card round? Can they get back to that this year? Is that the ceiling, or is that more so, you know, are they far away from that?
Yeah, so I don't think they're anywhere close to that. And I think that it's funny. It's like that season, as much fun as it probably was for Giants fans, and believe me, it was a lot of fun for them. I can tell you by being surrounded by them 24/7.
Right.
It was personally, I think it was one of the worst things that could happen to a franchise.
I kind of agree with that.
Because, yeah, it 100% is, because they tricked themselves into thinking that they were a solid team who was on the rise. And again, if you went back and watched those games, I watched all of them, and I have a very specific rooting interest in them. Man, they just got so lucky. Like, their point differential was so bad. They would just get like these real fluky turnovers to like the last minute. They got lucky, which, look, it's fine. That's going to be part of it. But if you watched the games, you would know that they weren't anywhere near a good team. So the fact that they beat all these really bad teams, you know, they got their asses kicked by any team that was like above 500 that year. Pretty sure they had a negative point differential. And yeah, that game where they went up to Minnesota on the road. They ended up stealing that game. You know, good for them. I think it was 31-24 they won. That Vikings defense was like historically one of the worst defenses in the history of football. So like, yeah, credit to you. You went up there and you lit them up. And then you went to Philadelphia the next week and got the doors blown off because you had to finally play a real team and they kicked your ass. So, but that offseason, that's when they extended Daniel Jones and they gave him $45 million a year, and they drafted a wide receiver with their first overall pick because they thought they were, you know, one weapon away. And I think it's really bad management. I thought it would have been okay for them to take a step back, you know, a little bit of like a gap year, maybe see what you have with Jones in the last year of his deal, see anything else that was out there that wasn't going to cost you $45 million a year. I mean, like maybe pay an offensive lineman with some of that $45 million a year. I mean, your O-line's been really bad. And again, this year with the draft.
Yeah, but it doesn't work that way. You need to have that offensive lineman to give that extension to. You can't just say like, let's jump into free agency and give it to whoever. That's not, you know, you need someone to give it to.
And they have, not that I follow this super closely, but from my understanding, they have invested some pretty heavy resources into their offensive line over the past few years. Just for whatever reason, none of them have really worked out that well.
Andrew Thomas is a great offensive lineman. That's one player that they have that's worked out on the O-line. Andrew Thomas is one of the best tackles in the league.
Okay.
Is it fair to say they're going to try and run the ball first this year?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
So they tried to do that last year, you know, with Barkley. They did that for Barkley's entire career. And that's another thing that I'm very curious to see, because one of their big, you know, ace up the sleeves, one of their big plays that they ran for the past 2 years with Jones was fake, you know, play action to Barkley. And it was just an end around with Jones, and he would get you 15, 20 yards because he has above average speed. I'm so sick of Giants. He's so fast. It's like, okay, he's pretty fast. He's not Lamar Jackson. Like, don't stop. Just stop. So I don't know. I'm curious to see. I don't
So-
really think that Daboll is this great coach that everyone thinks he is. He is as good of a coach right now as Ben McAdoo was, because he took his team to the playoffs the first year. They were a bad team. They became bad the next year. Everything regressed to the mean. So now he's in a pretty big prove it spot, and we'll see what happens.
I agree with that. I think that unfortunately Daboll might be one of the first coaches potentially to go this season. If
Yeah,
things
you're
really
all
go
about
south.
the Bill Belichick to the Giants rumor, right? You're all about that one.
Well, they've been talking about that for years. It's definitely not going to happen anymore. But
Why not?
yeah, no, why would he come to the Giants at this stage? He's only going to go somewhere where he can win a Super Bowl.
Why do you think that he doesn't believe in himself where he can rebuild an organization in like a year or two? You don't think he
Well,
believes
we
in
just
himself
saw that
that way?
play out over the last couple of seasons, and it didn't exactly work out. In
You
New
didn't see that
England.
play out. Oh, well, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. No, like so you bring up Belichick. I think the most likely destination, the landing spot for him next year would be Dallas.
Okay. I could see that. Sticking
Yeah.
with the Giants, though, I want to
Yeah,
get back to that. I know I kind of brought you off topic. I look at this team, and I don't see that much talent on the roster. I'm not gonna predict an amount of wins, 4 wins, 5 wins, 6 wins, just because so many games in the NFL come down to a possession late. So yeah, maybe they win a couple more games, and maybe they lose a couple more games than they could have won. But they're not a good team. They have the ceiling, I don't know. Maybe some of their they have a bunch of rookies in the secondary. They have a bunch of young players throughout the roster. Maybe a bunch of them play really well and they're actually good. That's unlikely. Regarding their team, the defensive line's good. They brought in Brian Burns. Dexter Lawrence is an elite defensive tackle. I know Sistad, you mentioned.
No, they're going to get
The corners are really bad. The secondary is really bad. They lost Xavier McKinney in the offseason.
huge loss. Yeah.
Huge loss. I agree. Best defensive back they had. Obviously, they lost Saquon. They have Devin Singletary to replace him. But yeah, even like Kayvon Thibodeau, I know, Sistad, you mentioned Kayvon Thibodeau. He had like 11 sacks last year, so people are pretty high in him. He had like a 7% pass rush win rate, which is below league average. So a lot of his sacks were like cleanup sacks, like protection sacks, like play breakdown type of sacks. I think about half of them actually were. So I just don't think they're very good. The defensive line has the potential to be very good. Daniel Jones, like you were saying, Sistad, he runs a lot. He is actually very fast. His sprint speed is like once he gets ahead of steam, he is among the fastest quarterbacks. But he's coming off a torn ACL. Is he going to be able to run as well? Why are you rolling your eyes? You don't believe in the sprint speed? You think people just made it up? They took a radar gun and made it up? No, did they make it up? Like,
I don't care if you're fast, though. Cool. Throw the football accurately.
Yeah, but you said that you don't believe that he's fast. I agree.
Said that the fan base loves him because they think he's great, and that's one of
the Giants fan base does not love him. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, they do. Dude,
I would say 90% of the Giant fans do not want him to be the quarterback, do not believe in him going forward. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. You're entitled to your opinion. All I know is when I put a Giants game on, there are plenty of Daniel Jones jerseys in the crowd.
That's different.
After 2022.
That's different.
After 2022, when they paid him, I was getting a lot of, well, no, he's actually really well. He's worth the $45 million.
At that time, yes, I agree. But right now, no.
Well, what happened between then and now? We got hurt.
He got hurt again when he has a chronic neck injury, and before he got hurt, he was playing really poorly. So people were very reactionary. As opposed to they saw him run a lot, they saw the team had success, and they called him like a winner. People are reactionary. The team makes the playoffs, and they think
change.
People react to the most recent thing that they saw. This is what sports fans do.
Right. It's no different than any other player in sports who gets a big contract. Like, they're going to be criticized to hell until they actually break through.
I agree.
I mean, look at Brown with the Celtics in the NBA. I mean, he got criticized like crazy when he signed his big deal.
He loves these random. Let's talk about the Cowboys, the Lakers, the Celtics.
And then he
we're talking about Jaylen Brown now.
So
now we're talking about Jaylen Brown somehow.
Comparing contracts to big time players. Yeah. And I mean, Daniel Jones. I mean, he's not a top 10 quarterback in the league. No one's saying that. but he's playing the most important position in sports and is going to be under the microscope. Hence the point we're all making here now. Look, he's fast. There's no doubt. I think they're going to be able to draw up some plays offensively where they can potentially in some short yardage situations do well, but their margin of error is so small.
Yeah, and he has the torn ACL. He's coming off a torn ACL. That's going to impact him. Yeah.
I think, bringing up the D line and how if they can get a pass rush and get some pressure up front, they can create some turnovers. And again, if they have some short yardage situations, some short fields to work on, potentially they can keep games close with that defense if they're able to play well. But we're going to know really quickly in the first couple of weeks if this is a team who can hover around 500 or if it's going to more so go south sooner versus later.
Yeah, I just think that like a lot of the talk that you hear is that they're kind of like lumped into the same group as like the Patriots and the Panthers, and just, I don't think they're that bad. Like, I think that they'll be. Yeah, I don't. I could again see them winning 6, 7, 8 games. I would say is a fair range for them. They've done it. The first 2 years of, again, to give Dable some credit, they took a really bad team. They got to, I think 10 or 11 wins his first year, and then last year they must have had 6 wins at least, right? 6, 7 wins, and they did it with Tommy DeVito and Tyrod Taylor for a good majority of the season. So that's a pretty well coached squad, in my opinion, especially for a roster that's just not that talented, like you said. He's looking it up.
They did go 6-11 last year. You are correct, Brad.
Yeah, I was looking. That's what I was looking up. Yep. I actually quickly typed in Giants record.
That damn Patriots kicker could hit a field goal, they would have been 5-12.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, now.
Hey, Sistad, you know what's funny? I was quickly looking up Giants record. I just, like, instead of, I'm not even on NFL.com, so I just Googled Giants record, and guess what came up? The San Francisco Baseball Giants.
Okay. Blasphemy. You need to be more specific.
We need to be more specific. I need to say football Giants.
Yeah.
So staying in the NL. That's right. Got to turn your location on. So staying in the NL East, we are going to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. I feel that you have to.
You said NL East.
I said the NL East?
You've got baseball in the brain, man.
Wow. NFC East. The Philadelphia Eagles. Sistad, I think you should kick us off with this because a couple things are going on here. One, I'm sensing that you're going to be very pessimistic about the season. And then secondly, well, Brad Dalius and I spoke about this off air a little bit about his take on the Eagles. So I would love to hear your reaction to his take. So let's get to both. First, Sistad, lead the way here.
So where do I start with the Philadelphia Eagles, my beloved Philadelphia Eagles? You might be surprised, Andrew. I know you and I have known each other a long time. I have famously, the year they won the Super Bowl, predicted them to go 3-13. I'm usually pretty down on the Eagles just because I'm just a Negadelphian at heart.
Negadelphia. That is a great one right there. I've never heard that.
Oh, really?
That's really good.
I can't take credit for it. I'm actually pretty optimistic on the Eagles this year for a couple of reasons. The first is that I just objectively think that they had a pretty good offseason. I still think that they have a very good roster. Even last year, I think they had a very good roster. I think that the Super Bowl hangover was very real. And I think that their offensive and defensive coordinator were both really bad last year. Down the stretch, they became insanely predictable, and they just hit a wall. And they also, the NFL schedulers did not do them any favors. There was a stretch in like November, December where they just had the gauntlet of all gauntlets. I should have brought it up, but I mean, they had Dallas and San Francisco and Buffalo and Miami and Kansas City on the road Monday night, Thursday night. Like, it was brutal. And they ended up like surviving. I think they started like maybe 4-1 in that stretch. And then that San Francisco game just kind of rocked their world. And they were never able to recover from that. And the defense they had a lot of injuries. Again, they became very predictable. They changed defensive coordinators like halfway through the season because the first guy was so bad. So they brought in your boy, Matt Patricia to run the defense, and he was also really bad. Players didn't seem to really respect him. He does not have
predictable thing we've ever seen in sports is Matt Patricia coaching a defense that goes south. I don't know if there's anything more predictable than that.
Like, yeah, it was really bad. I mean, to his defense, they really were working with nobody last year. They had no linebackers. Their defensive line took a hit. Jalen Carter started off the year really, really strong, and he definitely hit that rookie wall probably like right around mid-November when this really tough stretch started. But he was an absolute monster the first half of the year. The secondary was so bad. You know, I know we talked a couple weeks ago about cornerbacks, but yeah, James Bradbury was second team All-Pro 2022, and he was awful. One of the worst corners I've really could have ever seen.
No longer a corner now because of it.
Yeah, he's safety, and he's actually hurt. But
hurt, yeah.
Yeah, but even that, when he was good, again, he kind of grew up in. He's a big physical corner who made his bones in the NFC South. So like back in his prime, he was dealing with the Julio Joneses and the Mike Evans, like big physical receivers. I just don't think he's really equipped to try to match up with these guys who are really fast and can kind of do everything. But yeah, I think they obviously just totally collapsed down the stretch. They got their asses kicked in the playoff game by Baker Mayfield. Should have been a lot worse. I remember the Bucs dropped some really, really easy passes, like right in their hands. They could have put up 50 points that day. So that's that. Fast forward to the offseason. There's a lot of chatter coming out of Eagles land just about the collapse. People didn't respect Nick Sirianni and the Brian Johnson thing. The offensive coordinator from last year was like one of Jalen Hurts' father's best friends. There was just some clashing between offensive philosophies, it sounds like, play calling duties. So just kind of a perfect storm of shit that all snowballed, and and they ended up losing 6 of their last 7. And again, they got their asses handed to them in the playoff game. So offseason comes, couple of big notable moves. So obviously Jason Kelce retires, Fletcher Cox retires. Those are like the really big things. I'm blanking on one other thing that they did.
You mean
those are huge though?
Who they lost?
Yeah, who they lost. Yeah. Offensively, it was really nobody. It was pretty much, Kelce and DeAndre Swift, right? So the thing about the offense now, even if they didn't really have a good offseason as far as bringing players in, I really think that just the fact that they added 2 experienced coordinators,
Reddick, by the way. Hassan Reddick left.
That's defense, but yeah, I think the fact that they have 2 experienced coordinators who know what they're doing. Both guys were first-time play callers last year, and it showed. Even like the pre-snap stuff, like you'd watch the Eagles game and you would not see any movement before the snap when the Eagles were on offense. Like
that's what Kellen Moore is known for.
So
be a big change.
Yeah, it'd be a huge change. So I'm excited. I think the offense can be really good. I know Kelsey's gone, which is a really big loss, but the center that they have now, his name is Cam Jurgens. He was a 2nd-round pick a couple of years ago, handpicked by Jason Kelce. Played a lot of guard over the first couple of years of his career, but has been learning the center position from Kelce since he got there. The Eagles offensive line coach, his name is Jeff Stoutland's been there forever, has a very good reputation of
Kelce loves him.
Guys into real superstars. Yeah, he's been really solid for as long as I can remember. Offensive line might not be as good, should still be pretty good. Everybody else from left to right is still there. You still have Mailata. You still have Lane Johnson on the right-hand side. Leonard Dickerson's really good. And again, Cam Jurgens, pretty good. He's not going to be Jason Kelce, but if he could be 80% of what Jason Kelce was, then I think that they'll be in a pretty good spot. Other than that, the upgrade at running back is huge. They haven't had a running back this good since LaShawn McCoy. I think it's going to be massive. I think that the predictability factor is going to go way down because you pretty much knew what was coming, whether DeAndre Swift was in the game or Kenny Gainwell was in the game last year. They didn't have that one back who could do everything for them, right? DeAndre Swift is a pretty good runner, decent catcher, could not block for shit, could not pick up a blitz for shit. Kenny Gainwell, not a very good runner, not good at catching balls out of the backfield, but he had some semblance of pass blocking ability. So Barkley obviously does it all. He's a really good runner. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can block. He's never played with an offensive line that's been this good. So Hopefully that energizes him and he can really, really take advantage of that. Other than that, they just traded for Jahan Dotson from Washington a couple of weeks ago. If there was a weakness for the
Receiver
Eagles
depth.
roster-wise last year, it was their third receiver. Yeah.
And their secondary. You mean on offense, though, right?
Yes, I'm just talking offense specifically. Yeah, I mean, it was so bad that they brought the corpse of Julio Jones out of retirement to play third string for them, and he actually did pretty well for what it's worth. He scored a few touchdowns. But that's it. So I think the offense is in a really good spot with the new coordinator. The other thing is that, not I hate to be excuse maker guy, but I mean, Jalen was clearly compromised last year.
He was.
Definitely had a bad leg injury that really slowed him down. And it's funny, nobody, if you just kind of go look and listen to things, nobody can remember the moment that this happened. And I remember pretty clearly that there was a play in the Los Angeles Rams game earlier in the year. It was the week right before they played the Jets, actually. Los Angeles Rams game, he took off for a run, really good run. He gained 30-something yards, and he definitely planted his leg really weirdly. And I just remember thinking that didn't look good. And finished the game, finished the season, obviously relatively healthy, but you could just tell just from looking at him, he definitely lost a half a step. And when that's a really big part of your game, a half a step is a big deal. So from everything that you read, although they didn't play, the starters didn't really play one snap in the preseason. Everything you read and hear coming out of training camp is that he looks really good, looks really comfortable in the new offense. He looks good, looks fast, looks explosive. So hopefully that carries over into the regular season and he can have a really good bounce back year, because they're only going to go as far as he takes them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I really do like the Kellen Moore move. I think bringing in snap motion is going to be huge. The talent on this offense is too good. In a good scheme, it should be really, really difficult to stop this team. And Kellen Moore has had a lot of success over a 3-year stretch with the Cowboys, second ranked offense over those 3 years. With similar talent, I wouldn't say better talent, though.
I wouldn't say as much, no. I agree. Don't forget Dallas Goedert, man. That dude's a monster too,
Goddard's good.
So yeah, Goddard's very good. A lot of good tight ends though right now in the NFL. So you kind of have to have one if you want to be a decent offense. But yeah, I think the offense is going to be really good. I hope so.
How about the defense? So last year the secondary was a huge problem. I think the defensive line, I know they lost Reddick, but they replaced him with Huff. Jalen Carter, a year more experience here. I think the defensive line looks good, but how about the secondary? I know all year you complained to me last year. The numbers on it, the PFF grade is horrible. Darius Slay was bad. Obviously, like you said, Bradbury was not even an NFL corner last year. Tell us a little bit about the secondary and what are your expectations for it?
Yeah, so I think the secondary, it can't be any worse than last year, right? So
no, don't say that.
I think that they're don't tempt fate. No, I think they're going to be better. I think they got rid of their Bradbury problem, so they moved him to safety. He did get hurt though, 6 to 8 weeks, which isn't the worst thing in the world. I think they should be better. I think Slay is still pretty good. He had a decent year last year, but yeah, it was just they just had a bunch of undrafted guys and kind of no names come up, really, really young guys. But they went heavy on the draft in the draft. They took the kid Quinyon Mitchell with their first round pick. Yeah, he's from Toledo. Everything you read is really, really good, really strong showing from him. He was apparently getting a lot of offers to transfer to a lot of the big schools, Alabama, Georgia, but he turned them down because he said that Toledo was the school that took a shot on him. So he wanted to stay loyal and finish out his college career there. So they took him. They took Cooper DeJean in the second round, who it looks like he's going to play a little bit more safety, but he was kind of a little bit of a hybrid role. He actually was playing a little bit of outside linebacker in the preseason. So people are
huge difference.
Yeah. So he'll probably be the safety. They got Avonte Maddox back, who's their nickel corner, who's always really good. His problem is he just can't stay healthy. They brought back PJ Gardner-Johnson, who had a really good
last year with the Lions.
Really good
last year with the Lions.
He was really good with the Eagles in 2022. He had 7 picks in 11 games. So just kind of a nose for the ball. He's another one of those guys. My favorite position in football is when not really position. My favorite type of football player is when I have a secondary, just total shit talker who's not like the best in the world. Like he's not Darrell Revis, but I just love the guys who just chirp all day. Like Jalen Mills was one of these guys for the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl. Like not very good, but just in your ear all game. And I think that as a corner, I just love that in my secondary. I think that they have by far the hardest job on the field just because the receivers are so good and all of the rules lean so heavy to the offense. So like I just love a secondary with a real attitude, and that is Gardner Johnson. And I think they really missed him last year. And I think he's going to bring some really good energy back. Other than that, they have Reed Blankenship, who's their other safety, who's okay. He's a fine NFL starter. He's not really going to jump off the page for you, but I think they're going to be a little bit better. I'm really interested to see just how these young guys come along. They did upgrade at linebacker a little bit. So they got Devin White from the Tampa Bay Bucks. He's on a 1-year prove it deal. Didn't have a very good year last year, but he's still young enough. It's a contract year. And again, there's no such thing as a bad 1-year deal, in my opinion. So hopefully he can have a bounce back year. Defensive line, they got Bryce Huff from the Jets. They did lose Cox, but Jalen Carter's coming up, and also Jordan Davis, who's another one of the Georgia kids from 2 years before, is a monster as well. Josh Sweat's still there. Yep, he's really good. But Jordan Davis, the one knock on him coming out is that he just hasn't been in the best shape the first couple of years. But again, all the reporting out of camp is saying that he looks really good. I know.
Yeah, that's typical. All the reports. Training camp, everybody's in great shape.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, so take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, when he's on the field, he's really good run stuffer. Again, he just hasn't really stayed on the field that much because of I think the D-line, I think that plus with a new defensive coordinator, again, someone who just knows what they're doing. I don't really care obviously it matters a little bit, but as far as scheme and, 3-4-4-3, like just give me someone who knows what they're doing and people who are going to buy in and not be the worst in the world in the history of football at their position. And hopefully the offense can, the best defense will be a strong offense for the Eagles this year. But I think that they're going to look, again, just with the new play caller and a lot of the new faces, I think they're going to start off pretty rocky. But I think it's going to be one of those situations where as the year goes on, as these young guys get more reps in them, as they get more comfortable within the Fangio scheme, I think they'll have a better second half of the year than first half.
Yeah, I think that's pretty realistic. I think having
my last
go
point of Eagles optimism is their schedule is way easier than it was last year. That's what you get when you don't win the division. You get to play a second place schedule as opposed to a first place schedule. So it's much easier. Dallas probably isn't going to be as good as they were the past couple of years. And they just have a much easier schedule. Starts off a little rough with the Packers in Brazil.
Friday night,
yep. Other than that, they got some pretty winnable games coming up, like September, October. I'm feeling pretty good. If you were to ask me, scale of 1 to 10,
very specific. It's pretty good.
Well, I have a rule when it comes to rating things on a scale of 1 to 10. And you're not allowed to ever pick 7 because it's kind of it's too much of like it's too fair.
It's ridiculous. We don't need to continue with this.
So I have to pick a 6 or an 8. I'm not at an 8, so I'm going to go with 6.
Why have 1 to 10? Why just make it 1 to 6 or 1 to 9 and then...
I guess that's what people do. Yeah. Let me rate them on a scale of 1 to 7. Like, what a weird thing that would be.
Yeah, it's not weird to say that you can't do a 7 though. That's not weird.
It's not weird. I just explained to you why.
Brad Dalius, we need to hear your Eagles take because a little bit off air a couple days ago. I want to hear it, and more importantly, I want Sistad to hear it and respond.
Oh boy.
Well, I think right off the bat, like you said, Brad, they're going to be in Brazil on Friday against the Packers, who I have the Packers as the number 1 seed this year in the NFC with Jordan Love. So I think they're going to be tested right out of the gate. I do agree with you, though. Fairly easier schedule can definitely help them. Here's the issue. I think there's a lot of teams several teams who are in this predicament that the Eagles have found themselves in over the last year plus. The big thing is when you talk about the offense, they have the names still. They have Smith. They have Brown at receiver. Obviously, they have Barkley now as well. They've improved some things there. The Kelsey loss is massive at center, and I don't think people are talking about that enough. I think that there's going to be some growing pains there to start with, especially at the trying to run the ball with some of the stuff that Kellen Moore is looking to do pre-snap. I think there's going to be an adjustment period. I would be really surprised if they come in and everything is smooth sailing right away. Now, to your point, they might get off to a slow start and might have a better second half. I just think that the league has caught up with what they're trying to do offensively. Now, again, Barkley's the new wrinkle this year, so maybe there's some new tricks up the sleeve. But I think it's a coordinator as well, right? All that combined is new elements to what they're going to do offensively. But I think all from what Hurts has been able to do, and as good as he was 2 years ago, obviously we saw he took a little bit of a step back as last season went along. I mean, let's not mince words here. I mean, they really collapsed at the end of last year. A lot of it had to do defensively, and you're right, it could have been a lot worse in the wildcard game at Tampa if the Bucs would have scored a little bit more. But I do think, as is the case also with the Dolphins, for example, in Miami, I think the league has caught up to some of the things they've been able to do offensively over the last couple of years with Tua, Hill, and the gang down there. I think it's similar in Philly as well offensively. Look, the number one thing is going to be defense, right? I mean, that's what they got torched on last year. Can they clean up some of those issues they've had in the secondary, like you mentioned? If they can do that, I think they're a team that's going to be able to compete for a playoff spot. But I have them as a borderline playoff team. I don't think they're going to get back to the level they were a couple of years ago. I think this is a team that is in a different spot now. We'll see. Again, the Kelsey retirement and the Cox retirement on defense, those are big. People aren't talking about it as much. So if they're able to replace those guys and have other guys step up, I think they'll be in a better spot sooner versus later. But we'll have to see. Again, I'm excited for the game Friday night in Brazil. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Neutral site against the Packers. Again, right away, we get to see that Eagles defense in prime time against Jordan Love and that Packers offense. How do they do? That's going to be really, really fascinating. I think I'm curious to get your take on this one too, Brad, but I do think some of the criticism of Sirianni last year was a little bit over the top. I think it was more so with lack of execution on the field than coaching itself. We talked about Patricia, and he played a big role in them, I think, not doing well defensively. But from an offensive standpoint, do you feel like it was just for Sirianni to get a lot of that criticism, or was it more of the lack of execution on offense? Where, as the dust settled from last year, where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I think, I think when you're the head coach, it's always going to fall on you to an extent. But the thing with Sirianni is that people kind of around Philadelphia, they kind of clown him because it's kind of like, what does he do? Nobody knows exactly his role when it comes to day-to-day stuff. He doesn't call plays. He's not the offensive coordinator. He doesn't call defensive plays, obviously. So to know exactly what his role in it was is, we'll probably never find out. But believe me, he's definitely caught his fair share of flack throughout the collapse and throughout the offseason here. But I definitely think it was all just coaching. I think the play calling was so bad last year. It was so predictable. And to your point, just as far as the prediction goes, I don't know that you can say that they've caught up to what they're doing because of the addition of Kellen Moore and Saquon. Like, I don't think Kellen Moore has ever had a team like this as far as like the talent around him. And I think the addition of Saquon Barkley is going to really, really just change everything that they do on offense. So I don't know that it's fair to say that they've caught up to them when, they haven't really seen him play yet. I agree with you. I think that is one of the reasons as to why they collapsed so badly last year. I think that what they did worked through the first 11 games, and everybody caught up to what they were doing, and they could not do anything after that. So the league adjusted to what they were doing, and they could not adjust back. And that was it was a slow and steady decline from there. So, again, you can't really knock the guy. He's a first-time play caller. He didn't really have the experience of a head coach who has a lot of experience calling plays to lean on, and they just totally spiraled out of control. Hopefully, even though it's a lot of the same guys in the locker room, hopefully they turn the page and they could put it behind them and keep on keeping on here, because that was awful. It was torture watching that last year.
The good news is, as you know, they play in one of the more weaker divisions in the East. So I do think the division is up for grabs. I do like Dallas to win it, but the margin of error for the Cowboys is very small, kind of alluding to what you were saying earlier about how they may take a little bit of a step back this year. And I do think McCarthy is on the hot seat down there as well. So the Eagles could benefit from any type of collapse that the Cowboys may have along the way here. I don't know if anyone in this division is going to get off to a crazy hot start. I don't know if I see that necessarily. You might have just a slow start for every team in this division to begin the season. We'll have to see. Who out of the Eagles and the Cowboys, because I think most of us would agree it's probably going to come down to those two teams potentially to win the division if they both play up to their potential. Which team is able to beat the other team in their home stadium? In other words, which other team is able to win a road game at their division rival's home stadium will be a telltale sign of, I think, how that season could go ultimately for either team. We're in for another close division race this year, probably in the NFC East.
Yeah, NFC East is weird, man. There has not been a repeat division winner in the NFC East since 2004, which is just a real fluky, wacky thing. Yeah. But yeah, I am, we'll get to the J-men in a second, but I'm not very high on Dallas this year. I wasn't really very high on them last year. I think that they absolutely torched the teams that were really bad. And when they played a team that was good, they always seemed to come out on the losing side. So, I just think that they had a really bad offseason. I don't think they really did anything. They hired Mike Zimmer as their defensive coordinator. So I think that's going to be a step up for them. But personnel wise, they re-signed CD. That's great. The rest of their skill positions, do they have the worst running back room in the NFL right now?
Yeah, the Cowboys running back room is definitely an issue. If they have a combination of unproven second-year running back, Dowdle, combined with seemingly washed vets, Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook. Speaking of Dalvin Cook, he spent most of last year with the New York Jets.
He did.
Next, let's break down those New York Jets. But first...
You've been waiting all day to play that one, man.
I am so excited for the football season. The last time I was this excited for the Jet season was last year.
That's funny.
It was so disappointing.
I couldn't be genuinely more excited for Jets fans this year. Coming from a Patriots fan, honestly, I couldn't be more excited because that was brutal. That was absolutely brutal last year. No one wanted to see that. Literally no one.
No.
So, yeah, you have every right to be excited. I think this is one of the most talented rosters in the league. There's a lot of good things coming for this team this year. Again, health is going to be the biggest thing, as we know. And
for sure,
I'm very fascinated to see now, with a talented quarterback, with the most talented roster he's probably ever had, been a part of, whether as a head coach or an assistant, Saleh, how he does this year in, when the game is on the line, the final 2 minutes. Think about this. We haven't really seen him in a lot of these situations where the Jets have been in meaningful games since he's taken over as head coach.
Yeah.
With the playoffs on the line, for example, like pressure cooker situations? How does he utilize timeouts correctly?
Yeah.
I'm fascinated to see that.
In each of the last 2 seasons, they had pretty good starts where they were in a position to make a playoff run, a playoff push, and then they collapsed. Last year, it was inevitable with Zach Wilson. Can you do me a favor? Let's do this. Unless something drastically bad happens, like with Aaron Rodgers, the team, let's put an end to talking about last year starting now.
I'm down with that.
All right.
It was brutal to watch.
It's over.
Either way,
it's over.
It's over. It's in the past.
So
we're on to
this
24.
Season, we're on to 2024 to 2025. This season, I look at this roster, dude, and I see high impact players up and down the lineup. So I'll start with the defense. In my opinion, unquestionably the best corner in the league, Sauce Gardner. Actually, I got some trivia for you on this one. Since the Pro Football Focus PFF grading era, how many corners graded higher than Sauce Gardner in their first 2 seasons in the NFL? Take a guess.
A number. I'm going to say there's probably only 2 or 3 other corners that have done better.
Good guess. It's 1. Richard Sherman.
Even more impressive.
In his first 2 years,
he's been dynamite.
He's been incredible. And this year, they're using him as a glue guy. He's going to follow the other team's number 1 receiver. His first 2 years, him and DJ Reed just played side by side. Speaking of DJ Reed, he grades out as a top 10 corner also, and he's the number 2 corner on this team. Then you look at the linebackers. You got Quincy Williams, breakout season a year ago. You got defensive captain veteran CJ Mosley, really high-end linebackers. On the D-line, you got one of the best interior defensive linemen in Quinton Williams. On the edge, they're without Hassan Reddick. It hurts, but they have Jermaine Johnson. They have last year's first-round pick, Will McDonald. So the defense on all 3 levels is very good, with a chance to be dominant, a potential to be a ceiling of the number 1 defense in the NFL, and with the potential of an offense that can actually stay in the field, not turn the ball over, not have 3 and out after 3 and out. The defense could be really, really dominant. What do you think about the defense?
Top 5 without question. Again, disclaimer, everyone stays healthy. I agree. They have tremendous leadership at that middle linebacker spot with Mosley. We talked about Gardner, and you mentioned DJ Reed as well on the opposite corner when he would be the number 1 corner on probably most defenses.
More than half.
At least more than half. Right. So they get, they have some depth there. Look, if I'm the Jets, I am probably deferring most kickoffs this year. I'm probably looking to start on defense easily and have my defense set the tone for me. I don't think you could be in a better situation where this team has drafted well. They've been able to get their guys in there. They've been able to install what they want to do the last couple of years. Make no mistake, despite the setbacks and the disappointments with this Jets organization over the last, it's been a long time. I will spare everyone with the specifics on the number of years, but it's been quite a while.
We're not talking about the past anymore.
This is true. We are talking about the present. But to compliment them, Andrew, they have been put in a position this year, not just because of the Rodgers signing from a few years back now, but because of what they've been able to do to fill these other positions up. And they have done a good job, and I don't think they've gotten enough credit for that from a player personnel standpoint, to be able to have some of these guys in here to have this type of run, this potential type of run of what they're going to do, what I believe they're going to do, I think what we both believe they're going to do here in 2024. So they're loaded on defense. It's top 5 easily. I like them to set the tone defensively this year. Again, we'll get into the offense in a second, but despite the ceiling for the offense, I think this very much could replicate what we saw with Peyton Manning towards the end of his career in Denver. I think we could see something similar.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah. Now, I think Rodgers, his arm is not a noodle yet, like Manning was in that last year when they won that Super Bowl back in 2015. So Rodgers, too, he's got a lot more left in the tank than that. but I think it's comparable as we enter into this season here. I think it's very comparable with what you have offensively with Garrett Wilson, what you can do in the backfield as well with Breece Hall. Denver had a lot of playmakers on that offense in that Super Bowl season, and we're led by the defense, number one, which I think is very comparable here as well. I look for an awesome pass rush this year. And especially when they get up in games, 10 points or more, it might be lights out. It might be game over with the defensive ends being able to pin their ears back there and really go after the opposing quarterback. So I look for them to play from ahead quite a bit this year. At the same time, if they do get behind, obviously you got to be concerned with what number 12 can do too. So this team is loaded. It is for real. Have them winning this division, Andrew. I'm just going to put it out there now. I think they're going to win the East.
You don't want to save our division picks.
I can't help myself.
You've already given away the Cowboys and the Jets. We already know you're both East divisions.
Can't help myself. It's the most talented roster. I think they're going to win the division. And again, the defense is going to lead the way by a lot here this year.
Yeah, a little bit of an anecdotal story for me. Not only is it an anecdotal story, which I'm not big on, it's also breaking the new rule I just made about 5 minutes ago about not talking about the past for the Jets. I was somewhat recently, it was right after the Knicks and Rangers playoffs runs. And Jess, my wife, we were talking about, you obviously know Jess, and we were talking about like how I was just like watching sports every night, right? And it's like, I hate playoff season. Like, it's enough. It's enough. And
right. So this is like spring, back in the spring.
This is back in the spring. And we were talking about it and like how she's like, it's really bad this time of year. And then in baseball in October, like in early fall with the baseball playoffs. And she was like, but you're not that bad with football. And I'm like, well, you know why? Because we met you were there in college, 2000.
I was going to say
12.
You guys met up at
2013. Yeah. 13. The Jets haven't made the playoffs. We've been together for 11 years. The Jets haven't made the playoffs since she's known me. She's never experienced me during the Jets playoffs. Now, I watch the NFL playoffs, but it's not like when the Jets are in it. I'm not going to I have to watch every single snap. A couple hours before the game, I'm like, I can't focus on anything else. I'm just thinking about the game.
Yeah.
She hasn't experienced that. So a little bit of an anecdotal story. That's how long it's been since the Jets made the playoffs. I really hope that Jess has to suffer through me watching a Jets playoff games this year. Let's hope it happens.
At this point, she probably wants to see it as well. I don't even know if it would be. I don't know about that. She says that now, but then when the games start, and especially when they start to win some playoff games here and string something together, it's going to get real exciting. I think she'll rethink that.
I think so. But anyway, I hope to see what happens. Regarding the offense, you mentioned, obviously, we don't need to really talk. Aaron Rodgers, we hope that he's prime Aaron Rodgers or close. More realistically, he's a league average starting quarterback, which would be such a significant upgrade over what they've had with Zach Wilson.
Amen to that.
So if they got league average quarterback play, with this running game, with this defense, with Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, with these weapons, Tyler Conklin, the offense will be very good.
Williams is another guy. Yeah, Andrew, Mike Williams, you just mentioned him right there. I mean, this is a guy, if he can ever string together one full healthy season, my God. I mean, this guy probably is going to the Pro Bowl.
Was that 21 or 22? He was so good with the Chargers that one year.
He put it together for 1 year. If he could replicate that, though, for just one more season, just one more, I mean, that's a tremendous compliment to Wilson there, obviously. So, I mean, he's always getting off the hot starts the last couple of years like he did with the Chargers when he was with them. He's due for one full healthy season.
I'll tell you that between Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, I expect them both to be in the conversation for Offensive Player of the Year. Breece Hall is a ridiculous running back. What he's been able to do in this offense, it's really incredible. I mean, even in the pass game, they targeted him like percentage of routes that he ran. He had the highest target rate in the passing game on the team. Now, part of that is because they were, not really throwing the ball down the field because Zach Wilson was afraid last year.
Yes, he was.
He was afraid, rightfully so, because his first couple of years he just threw pick after pick. So last year he wouldn't even throw the ball. He would just like hold and dump it off. But that's the difference. When you have a league average Aaron Rodgers playing quarterback, if Aaron Rodgers could be closer to peak to MVP form Aaron Rodgers, then the Jets could be the best team in the league. I think that's the ceiling.
Oh, yeah. Agreed. Yeah. I mean, I would assume he's more motivated than ever. We know that. He wants to be able to prove that he can win with a different team. That's been in the back of his mind since Brady won the Super Bowl with Tampa, just for one example. And Brady's Bucks beat Rodgers in Green Bay at Lambeau. I think ever since he that loss coupled with the last loss and the last game he played with the Packers, which was that regular season defeat to the Lions a couple seasons ago, he's been more motivated than ever. Again, one of the more fascinating personalities we've seen in all of sports in a long time. There's different personalities with different quarterbacks that have come and gone over the years. He is a very intriguing one that has very much so blended with this new era of players, younger generation of players who have come along. He has been a player that they have continued to look up to. So he's been able to blend what he did earlier in his career, both on the field and off the field, with what he's doing here today, and connects well with younger players. So he's going to be more motivated than ever. I think, we'll see in regards to if he runs as much, if he doesn't. We've talked about this a little bit. You can imagine, it's going to be scaled back to some degree. But if it's needed for him to scramble at some points, will he do it? That'll be fascinating to see, because he could be lethal with that in critical moments of games if needed.
Yeah. No, I think that was probably gone even before the Achilles injury. I think now the most realistic hope in terms of his mobility is just being mobile within the pocket, moving around in the pocket, gaining an extra second, split second, 2 seconds to throw the ball. Outside of the pocket, I really don't expect it, and I'm fine with that. We don't need him to. He has guys that get open quickly, that create separation. Throw the ball. Get it to your weapons. And all this positive stuff, though, I do want to talk about the concerns.
Yes.
So the defense, the concern last year, the issue was the safety position. They had Chuck Clark, who they signed, not this offseason, the past offseason, but then he got hurt. They didn't have him all year last year. He got hurt in training camp. So he's back. They have Tony Adams back. They have Ashton Davis back. That is going to be a question. Can Chuck Clark how is he post-surgery? How is he after a year removed from playing? Tony Adams was good last year. Can he replicate that and take the next step as well? And then the depth, the Ashton Davis, there's some questions with that safety position. But of course, look, you can't have a great player at every position. So that's the one question on defense. And then if regarding defense also, if Hassan Reddick doesn't return at some point, I still love the starting defensive linemen, the edge rushers, but there's lack of depth. So if there's an injury to Will McDonald, Jermaine Johnson, that's when some issues can occur. I still think we're going to see Hassan Reddick at some point, but I don't know what to expect if and when he shows up anyway.
It's a big question mark. However, you mentioned Adams and Reed, not so much Reed, but Clark and Adams in the safety spots. I think a lot of teams are dealing with this, though, heading into the season with different question marks deep in their secondary. Mm-hmm. There's not a dominant Troy Polamalu type of player, Brian Dawkins player from back in the day, Ed Reed, the ball hawk, one of the greats. There is not that dominant player at the safety position right now in the league. So a lot of teams have that question mark. Yeah, again, fair. I look at it from up front. If this team is going to go far this year, especially led by the defense, it's going to be because of the pressure they generate up front and the lack of time they give opposing quarterbacks to throw. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. I don't see quarterbacks being able to get too comfortable in the pocket this year against this team. I don't see it. There's going to be a big time pass rush.
I agree.
And I think that will somewhat neutralize some of the deficiencies at safety.
And when you have the corners that they have, you can also blitz. So that kind of opens up more options. Robert Saleh's defenses have never been a huge on blitzing, but they have the option because of the corners that they have. Regarding the offensive line was terrible the last couple of seasons. It's been an issue for a long time now. Last year was really bad. They have made a lot of moves. Well, they bring back last year, they had Joe Tippmann as a rookie center. He was very good. Second year in the league, high hopes for him. AVT, Elijah Vera Tucker, has been dominant. Guard, tackle, different, moving him around. But the last 2 years, he's had season-ending injuries pretty relatively early in the season. So can he stay healthy after 2 extended injuries? And then they bring in John Simpson. They bring in Tyron Smith, obviously injury history himself. Morgan Moses, and then their first-round pick, Olu Fashanu. So they have some depth there, but they also have guys who have had injury history, guys who are a little bit older, and then a Joe Tippmann and Fashanu, who are first and second-year players. So there's some question marks there, and the hope is that they're able to figure it out. But also just having so many moving pieces, new pieces on the offensive line, a lot of times it takes some time for them to adjust to playing together. That's another aspect. And for the running game, the running backs, Breece Hall specifically, I hope because he'll be the cowbell, adjusting to a new offensive line because there's a chemistry there between the running game, the running back, and the offensive line.
Yeah, who could weather the storm? Which O-line can weather the storm the best, right? I feel like this happens most seasons in the NFL anymore, where you're going to have a guy go down on the offense, whether it's for, God forbid, long term or, short term is more of the hope if someone does go down. You're going to have to weather the storm at some point in the season. Who can do that the best, right? And who can they slide over? There's probably going to be a game or two here that they'll need to do that. Someone will need to slide over from one spot to the other. They'll insert a guy in. Who can do that the best? That's really the question. This will be another test for this team to see how well they can, they're able to, especially you're talking about, blocking and getting, being able to break free Hall and then Allen when he comes in as well. So I think, again, you're going to have Rodgers, if he's healthy and if he's just, like you said, somewhat resemblance of his old self, he's going to be able to negate some issues that they may have, especially early on when the continuity, the consistency might be a little bit off. So I look for them to have a huge improvement from what we saw last year. And, even if Conklin can, from the tight end position, can be involved as well. And from just a little bit of a standpoint of blocking or however they're going to best utilize him in this offense, that could help as well. But again, I look for this to be, the biggest upgrade from what we saw last year.
I agree. And to put a bow on the Jets breakdown, the one player that we haven't mentioned, and I actually forgot about him until you brought up the injuries. A key piece, potentially, something that they completely ignored last year. Do you have any idea what I'm referring to?
I'm feeling like this is another classic, sarcastic Andrew moment.
No, it's not sarcastic. I'm talking about backup quarterback. Last year, they were like, you know what? Zach Wilson, let him learn from Aaron Rodgers. I keep breaking my rule about talking about last year.
Okay.
Tyrod Taylor.
Yes,
Aaron Rodgers,
the ageless wonder,
is very likely going to miss a couple games. It's very likely. I think it's pretty likely he's not going to play 17. Could he? Yeah, he could. I would hope he does. I'm sure in his mind he is. But the idea that if he has to miss a game, something's bothering him, he has to miss a week or two, they have a respectable veteran quarterback who can go in and with the weapons around him in this offense, they could actually put up 20-plus points. It's not like it's an anemic offense that can't move the ball and they're going to be Robert Saleh and they're going to be terrified of throwing the ball and they're going to run it and just hope their defense can keep them in the game. They're going to actually have a real NFL offense, even with Tyrod Taylor in. Now, that said, obviously, we don't want Rodgers going down. But that's a big piece. Last year, they completely ignored it. They were just like, let Zach Wilson learn. It's fine. Let's ignore the backup quarterback.
We all saw how that
about last
learning
year.
lesson
I can't
went.
Stop.
No one wants to see that lesson repeat itself. Look, and that goes for any New York, whether you're a fan of the Jets or the Giants. I mean, my God, God bless Tommy DeVito with the Giants, but again, I mean, no comparison between him and Daniel Jones, as we've talked about already.
Yeah,
and it's very similar here as well, obviously, with Taylor being a huge upgrade over Zach Wilson. So I agree. Look, if he needs to spell Rodgers for any point this season, I think that's obviously a huge upgrade, especially in a short yardage situation. They could utilize him as well. So if need be. So yeah, look, he's been serviceable as a backup now for a while in this league, and I think he will continue to be there probably for quite a long time still. So yeah, they've upgraded there as well.
Yep. So moving on, we do want to move on to a segment where we're going to make our actual NFL picks for the season. This is week 1 of the NFL season, and we want to do the NFL preview, and we can't do an NFL preview without NFL picks. So what we're going to pick is the division winners, the conference champions, so the Super Bowl matchup, and then the Super Bowl winner. If you haven't noticed already, Sistad had a bounce. He is not with us the rest of this episode. I'm assuming at this point you probably all know that because he's gone. So we're not going to do the Twitter segment because we cannot do that without him. I don't even know how to look through Twitter and do the deep dive into the negativity. It's not in me to do that. We're not going to try to replicate it. So I've received a lot of positive feedback about that segment. So I'm sorry. We're going to skip it this week. Sistad will be back in full force, I'm sure, after the Eagles win or lose. And after the Giants win or lose and the Jets win or lose and the Yankees are doing what they're doing, I'm sure he'll have a lot of tweets for that. So anyway,
we look forward to the resumption of that.
We do. And we do have he did text us his picks. So we do have them.
Yeah.
Brad, what do you want to do? Do you want to recite his? Do you want to do yours first? I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, we can go through the other Brads for sure. Let's start with you want to start in the NFC or the AFC?
Let's start with we're both AFC guys. You're a Pats fan, I'm a Jets fan. Let's start with the AFC.
Okay. So we'll start in the East. Brad Sistad has the New York Jets winning the division in the AFC East. I have them as well. I think the Jets win the division, and they are also benefited from other teams in the division who are going to take a step back this year.
I have the Jets also.
Yeah.
We'll just go pick by pick all three.
Let's do it.
Yep.
So we got the East in. Let's go to the AFC South. Sistad has the Houston Texans winning that division. I like the Texans as well. Same. In addition to that, they are my number one team for the AFC in the playoffs as well.
And he didn't specify the seeding, but he does have them going to the Super Bowl.
He's got them going pretty far. Yeah. Yeah. Him and I both like Houston here to do very well this year. But continuing along now into the AFC North.
I have Houston also, by the way, winning that division.
So far we're unanimous here with agreement.
All three, Jets and Texans.
In the North, Brad's got Baltimore. I've also got the Ravens.
Yeah, so do I.
I mean, it's this. Look, I think they have the most pressure on them this year.
I think the Bengals could win that division. I think the Bengals are really good and can win that division.
They're right there.
I know people are like down on there, sleep on them a little bit just because they weren't as good last year, but they had injuries. Joe Burrow was out, so I think it's close. But yeah, I'm going with the Ravens.
In the West, I am gonna say we all probably are going with the Chiefs.
No, I'm gonna go with the Raiders. Yeah, no, we're going KC, and I know you're probably rooting against
otherwise.
Them. You're rooting against them,
of course.
Yeah,
every game,
can't challenge Tom Brady.
I hope they lose every game. It's not going to happen. But I can be wishful thinking on that one. But yeah, I think they'll win this division.
So we're all in on the Chiefs. So AFC, we're all in agreement on the 4 divisions. So we'll probably go 2-2.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if it was anything else than that. Yeah.
We'll split it. How about the AFC wildcards?
So in the wild cards, Sistad, he has Buffalo,
Cleveland, Pittsburgh.
Exactly. For me, I have Miami.
I'm with you on Miami.
Pittsburgh and Cleveland, actually, as well.
I like Miami. I like the Bengals and the Chargers.
Ooh. Okay,
Harbaugh.
First year with Harbaugh. Yeah, they sneak in.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen there this year with them. Like they're either going to break through and have this great first season, or the wheels are going to fall off. I don't know. I feel like it's going to go one way or another.
You love wheels falling off. You love the wheels falling off and the bottom falling out.
I love the drama one way or another. I love either the, hitting the moon or, crashing back down to earth. It's fun either way, depending on who it is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So Sistad has the Lions over the Texans in the Super Bowl.
How about how about the championship games first in each conference?
He didn't give us that though, so we'll just have to not do his.
No problem. What do you have?
The thing is, I don't like this because I want to pick the Jets.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I really believe that. I'm not unbiased here. I'm very biased. I want to believe the Jets.
You should believe that they're going to be in the Final Four.
All right, let's have fun. I'll pick the Jets. What's the worst that's going to happen?
Okay.
I'll pick the Jets versus the Ravens. AFC Championship game.
And the winner is?
I mean, I'll pick the Ravens for this.
Okay.
I have a hard time actually believing the Jets are going to be in the Super Bowl. So Ravens over the Jets. I've seen the Jets in the AFC Championship game though. So I've seen it a couple times.
I've seen that. Yeah, same. Yeah, it's been a while since Joe Namath's guarantee for a Jets team in the Super Bowl, but crazier things have happened.
Ravens over the Jets in the AFC title game, and then I'm going to go in the NFC. We didn't make our division picks for the NFC yet. So let's hold off the NFC.
Sounds good. So for the AFC title game, I like CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans over the Jets in a very close one.
Hey, that'd be great. I'm okay with that. You know how we talked about the journey, right? I don't know if that was episode 1. I think it was episode 1. I talked about how I enjoy the journey more than the result. If the Jets lost in the AFC Championship game, I would be so happy with that season. I would have so much fun and enjoyment all season long. Even if they just lose in the first round of the playoffs, I'll feel that way. So I'm sure in the moment I'd be like, oh, that sucks. We're so close to the Super Bowl, but I'll be very, very happy with that season. So I hope they lose in the AFC title game.
We shall see. It's going to be close. I think they're there in it. No question. To the NFC now.
I think there's a lot of questions.
There's a lot of questions, but you can put them in. I think they're going to be there.
Yeah, no question. No question.
They'll be there. Championship Sunday. Look for them.
All right. Brad Dalius says no question. All right, let's go to the NFC divisions.
Yes. Starting off in the East, Sistad has the Eagles coming back after a year of this division. They love to alternate each year. It's like a tradition for this division. They just alternate the champ of the division. It's one year. It speaks
to the competition that, especially between the Eagles and the Cowboys over recent years, how good they've been. Because the Giants and Washington have not been good. That's been consistent as well.
Yes, this is true. Yeah, I mean, the Commanders, it can only get better. Look, they cleaned house. It's a whole new ownership group. I think they'll be a little bit more competitive. I do think they'll be better than the Giants.
Yeah, I don't even have that much of an opinion on it. I really don't know. I don't think that either of them will be good. So who are you going in the? So he went the Eagles. Which I'm surprised he actually. If he didn't leave, he wouldn't be saying the Eagles. If he was on right now, he'd say the Cowboys. Every time I've previewed an NFL season with him, without obviously this is the first time we're doing a podcast. Anytime every year we talk over the phone about it. He never picks the Eagles. He has a superstition about it, but I guess he could text it. That's okay.
Hey, I mean, he usually is from what I'm learning, more of the king of pessimism or, realism tied in with pessimism, however you want to look at it, self-proclaimed. So
for sure.
Look, I think it's just, he's rooting for the worst, but expecting the best. Rooting for, or maybe strike that, reverse it. More so, he's hoping for the best, but he's preparing himself for what could be the reality.
The worst, yeah. Preparing himself, yeah. Okay,
right.
So, did you make your pick yet in that division?
I like the Cowboys. I think they break this alternate. I think they go back to back. Mike McCarthy has maybe the most pressure on him this year from any head coach. With the team who's supposed to do well and go far.
Dude, so, why are you trying to get guys fired? Come on. Trying to get guys fired. Mike McCarthy, he has the most pressure on him.
He does, man. Why? Remind me what happened during the wildcard weekend last year in Dallas. What happened?
Yeah, but here's the problem.
They got blown out.
Here's my problem with this. The culture of football is the pressure is you have to win. If the high expectations are high, you don't win a Super Bowl, you have to fire the coach. If the team doesn't make the playoffs for X amount of years in a row, you have to fire the coach. Instead of just letting people letting people develop, being patient. You trusted a coach, you hired him for a reason, give him time to realize the potential of himself and the roster instead of just always everything's so knee-jerk. Everything's about now. Just be patient. Have some conviction in your coaching decision. That's how I feel.
He's been on the clock.
I really don't like how everyone is always about firing. The media is about it. The fan bases are about it. Owners, I don't know if they believe it or they're just giving into the pressure. I really don't like it. And it's in all sports. But the NFL, the NBA, the NHL specifically, it's just like one coach after the next. So
you gotta win.
I'm off my soapbox. That's it.
All right. Yeah, I like the Cowboys. I think they win the division. And we head now to the NFC South.
Sistad has the Falcons. And you have
Tampa. Baker Mayfield. I think they were able to put some things together at the end of last year. They had a nice run into the divisional round. I think that in a division that's always very winnable in the South, I think they're going to be able to win a lot of these games in the division. Again, it won't be the prettiest record that gets it done down there, as usually is the case. But I believe Tampa has got enough talent still. People are sleeping on them a little bit. I like what they did last year with Baker Mayfield. The coaching is generally good down there with Todd Bowles at this point. So I like Tampa.
All right. I'm going to go with the Saints. I don't have a real good reason for it, except I don't love any of the four teams and don't want to follow you with the Bucks. And I certainly don't want to follow Sistad with the Falcons. And we are too similar. So I'm just going to go with the Saints. Again, I don't have a good reason, so we can move on. You want to move on to the West?
Nation loves Andrew. There's no doubt. Yeah, let's go to the West. Sistad's got the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, I don't think they're even close. They did lose Aaron Donald. Yeah, remember? Retired. Yeah.
This is true.
I think the Niners are by far the best team in that division. I don't think it's even somewhat close. I think they're going to run away with that division with ease.
Wow. I agree in the sense that San Francisco is still going to be good. Despite any type of potential Super Bowl hangover from a loss there, I think they're still going to have a really good season. But this Rams team is loaded. I think McVay is one of the best head coaches in the league at this point. The fact of him being able to reinvent himself and what they've been able to do offensively over the last year or two when this team was almost left for dead a year ago at this point. No one really expected anything for them. Cooper Kupp's basically came back from the dead. And as long as he's healthy this year, to pair him with Puka Nacua, I mean, this team could have beat the Lions. They very well could have beat them in the wild card game. They was that close.
Yeah, I agree.
This team's going to be good. I think they win the division as well. I agree with Sistad.
All right. I have the Niners. You both have the Rams. Yeah. What do you think about the Seahawks? You think the Seahawks are going to be good?
I don't think so. I just think that, Pete Carroll no longer there. You have a whole new coaching staff that's come in. At this point, I don't really have a lot of faith in what can they do great offensively. They're an unknown right now.
I don't think they're great at anything. I think they're just okay at a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
I think, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if they took a really major step back this year, just because they've been so competitive for so long now. I think Carroll was able to get more out of them than maybe what a lot of other coaches would have over the last year or two. So I'm not big on them this year. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they'll be on the outside looking in.
All right. NFC North.
This, to me, has the potential to be one of the best divisional races this year in the league between the Packers and the Lions. I'm going to go with Green Bay because I'm really high on Jordan Love and what this Packers team can do this year. I think their ceiling is very high. With that being said, the Lions are going to have a very good season as well. And Jared Goff may be a MVP sleeper. Dark horse candidate this year. These two teams are going to battle it out.
He was an MVP candidate last year. I don't know if you can call him like a sleeper. I mean,
well, no one's really picking him to win it this year as much. He's never.
Yeah, I mean, he's not one of the heavy favorites.
Choice. Right. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So because of that, I think he's in the dark horse.
But I don't know if it's like. But all right, I guess we're. I mean, I guess there's not like a clear like this is what a dark horse definition is. So okay.
Yeah, he's gonna have a great season. He's gonna have a great season.
I'm with you on that. And I am also with you on the Lions winning. I'm with the Lions on the NFC North.
Okay. So you like the Lions, I like the Packers.
You like the Packers, right? Yeah.
And Sistad, he likes the Lions as well.
He likes the Lions. Yeah. All right. So how about wild cards then?
So Sistad's got Green Bay, San Francisco, and Seattle.
Okay. How about you?
I like the Finners. I like the Lions, and I think the Eagles are the last team that gets in.
I like the Eagles as a wild card. And then I like the Vikings and the Packers.
Ooh, Vikings.
Yeah.
Going out on a limb there with that one. That's intriguing.
You know what it is? I don't really feel strongly about that. I was actually between the Cardinals and the Vikings. I just look at it and I think outside, to me, in the NFC, the Niners and the Cowboys are the two dominant teams. The Eagles are the third, and the Lions, are the three dominant teams. And then I think the Eagles are slightly behind them as the fourth best team. And then to me, after that, I think they're all I think the Packers are maybe slightly better than everyone else from there, but I think it's very close. I don't know.
It's close. Yeah. That's fascinating with the Cardinals because we talked a little bit about this too over the phone recently. Like, I think that even if they don't make the playoffs, they're going to be in almost every game this year. I feel like they're going to be competitive as long as Kyler Murray stays healthy. Marvin Harrison Jr., I think he just, he will fit into this offense like
Trey
a glove.
McBride. They got some weapons. I agree.
Yeah. They're gonna be better than maybe what some people would think. If all goes well, could be a borderline playoff team. I mean, I think there's definitely some argument there to what you're saying.
So who do you have in the NFC title game?
I think, again, I go back to what's going to be the most competitive divisional race this year, which is in the North. I believe in the NFC North. And I think we have they'll play twice in the regular season, and I think they play a third time in the NFC Championship game, Lions versus Packers. I think the Lions go to the Super Bowl for the first time and beat them.
Nice. You got the Lions over the Texans. And Sistad has...
No. I like the Lions over the Packers.
Oh, no, the Lions over the Packers, but then...
The Super Bowl pick?
Yeah, then you get your Super Bowl pick, too.
Yeah, okay, Super Bowl pick. So Texans versus Lions. Look, two teams that have never won the Super Bowl, never even appeared in the Super Bowl. I think C.J. Stroud's going to have an unbelievable year. I like the Houston Texans to win their first Super Bowl.
For some reason, I thought you were going Lions over the Texans. I don't know why I had that in my mind.
No, Lions over Packers in the NFC title game.
Texans, you got the Texans over the Lions.
Or Texans over the Jets, and then Super Bowl Texans over the Lions.
All right.
Yeah. They're going to be good.
In the AFC, I had the Ravens over the Jets in the AFC title game. And in the NFC, I have the Niners over the Cowboys.
Okay.
And then...
Where's that title game at? Dallas or San Francisco?
San Fran.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. No, I think the Niners are going to be like a 13-14 win team this year.
Yeah, you like them a lot.
Hopefully one of their 3 or 4 losses will come week 1. So, we'll see.
I know you would like that.
But yeah, I do like the Niners. Niners over the Cowboys, and I'll do a rematch. Ravens, Niners have played each other before in the Super Bowl. I'll do the Niners over the Ravens in the Super Bowl as well. Niners get back there and they win. They finally win.
So you think they finally break through? They get back to the Super Bowl after losing in heartbreak fashion last year, and Kyle Shanahan finally gets the monkey off his back.
Finally gets it when he didn't know the he didn't know the overtime rule. What was it again? He didn't know. I think he thought that he got the ball back even if they gave up a touchdown. Was that the rule?
Yeah, there was some confusion, like in the post game press conference, right? What did he say? He was like, "Yeah, I thought we had the opportunity to possess it again." He wasn't alone though in that. I think there were some Niners players who were saying similar things.
Well, I mean, the coach has to. They should be well informed before playoff games of what the rule is.
Yeah,
there should be no confusion on anyone on the roster, anyone on the coaching staff. I don't know what happened there, but anyway, yeah, I'm with the Niners.
So you still think that Brock Purdy is going to play at a high level and will be able to out-duel opposing defenses?
Assessment about the quarterback. My go-to isn't, the quarterback. He's a huge part of the team, obviously.
Of course.
But Purdy has proven that he's good enough in that offense to be successful.
The sample size
doesn't have to be
large.
About him specifically.
Yeah, that's fair. Look, I think he's solid. He's not going to be the reason why they don't get back there. I think it would be another reason, if anything. It's tough to get back. It's so tough after losing in that. Do you know
Super
what the
Bowl,
thing with Brock
Purdy? You know what the holdup with Brock Purdy is? There's 2 holdups.
Okay.
That people have. One, it's where he was drafted. Secondly, it's his name. Something about Brock Purdy people don't take seriously. It's not a brand name. People would take more seriously Matthew Stafford or Kirk Cousins. They would take that more seriously. I can go up and down list names. I mean, are those guys better than Brock Purdy at this point? I mean, maybe they slightly are, but they're not substantially better yet. They're viewed in a whole nother light just because they have a brand name.
Yeah, I mean, things could have been different if they would have won last year. I mean, his stock would have risen. It would have helped with that, I believe. I mean, look, he's already, though, exceeded all potential expectations one would have ever imagined in their wildest dreams for Mr. Irrelevant.
Oh, for sure.
So he's playing with house money for the rest of his career. I mean, at this point, I
don't think he views it that way, but I get from an outside perspective.
From an outsider perspective, yeah. And, they obviously...
He's playing with house money. What a ridiculous saying. He's playing with house money.
He is,
It's not you. I'm not making fun of you. This is a saying that everybody uses often, especially in sports. If a team or player exceeds a person's individual expectations, then that person is playing with house money because that individual didn't expect them to go that far. It's just kind of a silly concept. You know what I mean? Like if Brock Purdy expected himself to do this, he's not playing with house money. But because people around the NFL, fans, media, we didn't expect him. He's playing with house money. It's just kind of a funny concept.
From the Monday morning quarterback perspective, he's playing with house money.
Yes.
Not if you're a member of the 53-man act, obviously. Not,
for sure.
Especially not him either.
No.
I'm curious to get your take on just, surprises this year. Whether it's from certain teams, certain players, things that aren't being talked about as much, who takes a big step forward, big step back.
So you got to tell me what's being talked about because I do not follow the traditional football talk. I just don't see it. I don't know what people are not talking about. That's the honest truth. I really don't know what people on ESPN, NFL Network are saying. I don't watch it. I don't know.
Well,
so sorry to ruin your question.
Yeah. It's a few things that I'm personally looking at. Number one, we talk about the Jets winning the AFC East. I think that's going to be they're going to have a great season, but I think it'll be aided by Buffalo missing the playoffs. In my opinion.
What are the shows on ESPN and NFL Network saying about the Jets? What are they?
Well, I think either people are ultra excited and they're high on them like we are here like we're talking about on tonight's pod.
Or they're scoffing at the Jets because it's the Jets. Is that what's going on?
No, it's interesting. It's more of they're playing it neutral and they're very, very cautiously optimistic because they're concerned about the injury history and plus also the history of the Jets, obviously, as well. So they're
scoffing at the Jets because it's the Jets. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what the Jets are known for. They're known for
we'll use that word.
For being overhyped and being the joke and the laughing stock and this is the year and Rodgers gets hurt and I keep going back to last year breaking my rule. But anyway, so I guess saying that the Jets are going to go to the AFC Championship game then is a little bit under the radar or no from what you're seeing.
Well, it depends. I'm seeing some people have them going like 10-7, getting in as a wild card team, and then I guess figuring things out later in the year. Some people think there's going to be a learning curve to begin the season for a variety of different reasons, and they'll turn it on a little bit later. I think you and I are both in agreement that this is a team that is capable of winning 12, 13 games.
Yes, I do. I think the minimum, like less than this would be a huge disappointment, is 10.
Yeah. Right. And I think they're going to win the division. And like I said, I'm not as big on Miami either. I think Miami takes a step back. Look, the Dolphins are basically the Dallas Cowboys now of the AFC. We know how they play in the regular season.
That's a compliment.
No,
you're using that as a negative,
really not.
But it's a compliment. You just don't realize you're complimenting them.
They've been terrible in January. Terrible. Last time we saw them play, they rolled over
to January. Get to January. All the teams that don't get to January, they haven't been terrible in January. The Jets haven't been bad in January.
When they've played in January, they've been awful. Don't even get me started on that. They've been terrible. I have a lot of concerns about Tua this year. And
can we wrap this up with
also Josh
I
Allen
want to talk about this championship or bust belief. Do you really buy into this championship or bust way of thinking?
Well, it depends.
And I really don't buy into it at all.
Expectations are different per team, based on a variety of different factors.
So if the Cowboys lost in the NFC divisional round, that's a failure or just a big disappointment in your opinion?
They have to get to the title game. at least. I think if you ask any Cowboys fan that, they would agree almost unanimously.
They probably would. I don't doubt that. This is the culture of sports fans.
Yeah.
We're all tied to, you need to win championship. You need to get X far.
Because they've been in the playoffs. They've been almost one and done now, almost year after year. You got to break through. You got to take that next step. Whereas the Lions last year, I mean, they won their first home playoff game in a million years. They made it all the way to the NFC title game. I think the Lions, it's a different situation with that. For example, like this year, if the Lions were to, lose in the wild card round, for example, it would be different based off of last year's success for the first time in forever.
I think I look at it almost, I wouldn't say the opposite, because I really don't believe in this, like, you have to win in the playoffs. Look, any team can lose any game. It's one game. I don't put too much pressure on one game. I just don't put too much emphasis on one game. But for a team that doesn't consistently make the playoffs year after year after year, era through era, I would think the emphasis would be more on making the most of when you are there, as opposed to the team that's there regularly. And if you don't win, you don't have to break through, because every year you're really good. Whereas for a team that's not very good, it's like, well, we need to take advantage of this, because we're not going to be back in the playoffs.
The difference though is that it's like you're in the wild card, you're in the divisional round every year after year, but you can't break through it. And then the Lions, we'll go back to that example again. They, after not winning a playoff game in like 30 years, they not only win a playoff game, they win two. And they get to the NFC title game that this same Cowboys team for years now can't get back to, with the same cast of coach and players, multiple coaches now. That's just the example there. I mean,
I hear you.
I think the Dolphins are comparable a little bit now. They're starting to get into that territory because they haven't even won a playoff game now in quite a long time. I mean,
well, the Dolphins do have a very specific situation in which they're a football team that plays half their games in Miami. So they're built for that kind of setting, really nice weather. So when they have to go on the road in a cold environment and play a football game, they're not used to it as a team. And that is a disadvantage. It's a disadvantage. They can overcome it, but it's a disadvantage. Do you agree? I guess the answer is, I agree. Home field advantage. Well, it's not that easy to finish as a number one seed.
I agree, but that's why you pay the guys the big bucks to figure it out.
What does that mean? What guys? Who's getting paid? What do you mean?
Tua. They just gave Tua and McDaniel. They just gave Tua a huge contract. Like, figure it out. Like, if you don't do it, they're gonna bring someone else in eventually to try and, like.
I know they will.
You know what I mean? Like, you gotta figure. Like, that's no excuse. I hear you. They're at a disadvantage, but what about taking the play we've seen the last couple of years in September, October, November, and translating that to January? Like, it hasn't happened. Now, again, we could talk about they've been away from Miami in the playoffs, but you got to figure it out. Or
they had that freezing game last year.
Yes, I know, but both teams had to play with it, and I mean the Chiefs actually looked like they knew how to play football. One of the teams has played in cold weather environments, in very cold weather. The other team spent half the year playing in 90-degree weather. I mean, I get it.
You don't see the difference.
We can go back to history, though. I mean, look at the 2002 Buccaneers. Everyone said that team couldn't play in cold temperatures. They wanted nothing to do with it, and they absolutely spanked Philly that year in the NFC title game.
I can't speak to that because I don't recall. I mean,
There's examples over the years.
Were we 12 at that time? I mean, I
was watching.
Yeah, you don't remember the game.
I do.
Do you?
I honestly, I go back to the first game. I mean, it's crazy. Like, some people are going to be like, wow, you guys are super young. But the first, in a sense, because the first game was Super Bowl 36 that I remember. Super Bowl wise, I started watching that season back in like 2001.
I don't even remember Super Bowls by their Super Bowl number. I can only remember them by the year.
That's interesting.
What Super Bowl number are we on now?
This is going to be 57?
Okay.
55 was Tampa. Oh, no, this might be 58, actually. Last year was 57 in Vegas. 58 this year. Yeah, 58.
Yeah, I only think about it by the year.
By the year. Huh, okay. Interesting. You know what I'm best at with the year? Baseball. It's just 1 year. Doesn't overlap.
One of these episodes, when it's not football season, when it's not, baseball playoffs, baseball postseason push, a lot going on, NBA, NHL, we're going to find a time after the Super Bowl, probably in February. We should have an episode where we just do random sports trivia.
That'd be fun.
Maybe we'll have like a guest come on and host the trivia.
Yeah.
We can figure that out. To put a bow on this episode, though, we are looking forward to the start of the NFL season. Next week on episode 5, we're going to review the Eagles game, the Giants game, the Jets game, a little bit around the league as well, and then we're going to preview all 3 teams' week 2 matchups and perhaps get into the baseball a little bit. We've been ignoring the Mets on this podcast. The Mets are pushing for a playoff spot.
They are.
So we should definitely talk about that as well. We'll have Sistad back. He'll go for the whole episode, hopefully next week, and he'll bring his Twitter, angry New York fans on Twitter as well. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Please give us a like, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Sports and culture all in one. Catch the fire, feel the fun. Andrew, Sistad, Brad unite. Philly and Y in the spotlight.